before the 40s, before the Big Bang, before the steady state, before all these other fringe theories, the normal concept that humanity had back in the 40s, the 30s, the 20s, etc., was that God created the universe. But starting in the 40s, and interestingly enough, after World War II, around that time, so many things changed. All of a sudden, science had to put its big fat face in there and say, no. Hold on a second with this God thing, okay? Maybe, it was this thing here, this theory. This is kind of a cool theory. Or maybe it was always there. Now, I'm not arguing one way or the other. I'm just positing these possibilities that the timing of the theories versus the timing of when it was no longer taught in institutions, schools and religious institutions, kind of, in almost every instance of a verse in the Bible, and I am referring mostly to what is known as the Old Testament or the 5 books of Moses, modern day science has what would seem to be an agenda to come up with a scientific explanation for certain biblical events. It's not God. No. It was a natural earthquake or a natural flood. Or what it really meant was something else entirely that surely could be explained logically. When it comes to the age-old explanation of how the universe was created with, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, well, scientists thought that was just a little too vague. So they had to come up with something else that would make more sense. And for the last 100 years, the Big Bang Theory was the definitive explanation for the creation of the universe. But is it? Today, folks, we're going to question the Big Bang Theory. My name is Eitan, and welcome to my Cosmic Awakening. Where do we come from? The veil of forgetfulness is quite strong, my young Jedis. And so we bang our heads against the wall because we just can't let it go. It's understandable. I want to know. You want to know. We all want to know how it all began. So today, folks, I'm going to try to connect with a few scientists who have passed on, who were prominent in universe creation theory. I do this by dowsing with a pendulum on a chart. And hopefully these scientists will come in so we can ask them how their universe creation theories panned out. Now, before I do this, let's get into some of these creation theories. One of the first theories is called the steady state theory. It was developed in 1948 by Fred Hoyle, Herman Bondi, and Thomas Gold, and it described a universe that is eternal and unchanging. It posited, that's a good word, posited, that the universe is eternal, infinite in extent, and has no beginning or no end. It expands continuously, but new matter is spontaneously created at a very low rate to maintain constant average density over time. So this guy, Fred Hoyle, it's a little background on him. He was a British astronomer, a cosmologist, and interestingly enough, an atheist. Now, he opposed the Big Bang Theory and actually coined the name Big Bang Theory at some conference as a derogatory remark against the Big Bang Theory. So he's the one that actually coined it, which is interesting. But again, he posited, use that word again, I like that word, an eternal, infinite universe that expands constantly. So that's one of the more prominent theories before the Big Bang became sort of the actual prominent theory. Now, the Big Bang theory was first actually proposed in 1927, before the other theory, but did not gain traction until the late 40s. But it was first proposed by a Belgian physicist, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, mathematician, and actually, interestingly enough, a Catholic priest, suggesting that the universe expanded from a primeval atom, or initial compact state. And it doesn't say this in the PowerPoint, but it was actually based on Einstein's theory of relativity. So Einstein definitely had a hand, or at least his influence, on the Big Bang theory. It posits that approximately 13.8 billion years ago, the universe began as an extremely hot, dense state, often described as a singularity or a point of infinite density and temperature, from which it has been expanding ever since. So we still have the expanding concept in both theories, but one is it has always been there, the steady state theory, sort of no beginning and no end. But the Big Bang theory has more of a explosion, more like the universe was awakened by, well, naturally or by something or someone. Now, there are other fringe theories which I have to mention just because of I wouldn't be doing justice to the universe creation theories if I didn't at least mention them. And they are fringe theories, and let me look at my notes here about some of these. The cyclic or bouncing model, oscillating model theory. This proposes that the universe undergoes endless cycles of expansion, contraction, and bounce. Okay, at least it looks pretty. Another one is the plasma cosmology model. This emphasizes electromagnetic forces and plasma dynamics over gravity in shaping cosmic structures. It rejects dark matter, dark energy, and the hot Big Bang origin, suggesting a non-expanding or differently evolving universe. It doesn't hold that much water with scientists, and frankly, it looks like it came out of a Marvel movie. Then there's this quasi-steady state cosmology, which is sort of an updated version of Fred Hoyle's steady state theory. It incorporates some expansion. It was kind of like let's put a little bit of this in. There's a potpourri of theories, is what this one was, but it has very little support now. And then lastly, the tired light hypothesis. Even the name makes me want to fall asleep, but this theory was proposed as an alternative to expansion, and again, it is largely discredited by multiple lines of evidence. So at the very least, there are some other theories that we can attest were around. In the mainstream scientific community today, the Big Bang, refined with inflation, dark matter, and dark energy, remains overwhelmingly accepted as the best explanation for the universe's origin and evolution. Oh, sorry. I forgot one more possible explanation. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Genesis 1:1. We can't let this one go. This is one that we should at least look into also. The question now, before we begin contacting some of these scientists, is going to be, did science kill God? And I know that is a harsh thing to say, but let's take a look here real quick. Prior to the steady state theory, which was proposed in 1948, the most commonly held belief worldwide about the origin of the universe was rooted in religious and mythological narratives rather than scientific models. As science was not yet a dominant global influence, and cosmology as a field was limited to a small elite. Okay. Among the general population, estimated at around 2.3 billion in the 1940s, religious views predominated with the Abrahamic creation story, shared by Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, being one of the most widespread. So if you were to do just a little bit of research in the timing of these theories, the steady state and even the Big Bang, when it became very, very popular, the narrative primarily drawn from the book of Genesis and other accounts in other biblical texts describes God created the universe from nothing, called ex nihilo, in a deliberate, ordered process over 6 days, even though that might be the, they say in the Bible that the days back then were not necessarily 24 hours, okay? Could it be a millennia? A day could be a millennia, for example. Starting with, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So key elements include separating light from darkness, forming the firmament, land, seas, plants, celestial bodies, animals, and finally humans. This view emphasized a finite beginning with a divine purpose, and now this is the kicker right here, and was taught in religious institutions, schools, and households across Europe, the Americas, the Middle East, and parts of Africa and Asia. Well, that's the whole freaking world, encompassing roughly 50 to 60% of the world's population affiliated with Abrahamic faiths at the time. So you see what I'm trying to say here, folks, or at least I'm trying to point out. Before the 40s, before the Big Bang, before the steady state, before all these other fringe theories, the normal concept that humanity had back in the 40s, the 30s, the 20s, etc., was that God created the universe. But starting in the 40s, and interestingly enough, after World War II, around that time, so many things changed. All of a sudden, science had to put its big fat face in there and say, no. Hold on a second with this God thing, okay? Maybe, it was this thing here, this theory. This is kind of a cool theory. Or maybe it was always there. Now, I'm not arguing one way or the other. I'm just positing these possibilities, that the timing of the theories versus the timing of when it was no longer taught in institutions, schools and religious institutions, kind of, So the concluding theories that are in the running here are, behind door number 1, the steady state theory. That gets a couple points. Number 2, the Big Bang theory. Now, again, the Big Bang theory is more prominent, but I'm just putting them in the running. This is not in order by any means. And behind door number 3, well, let's just say God, okay? Genesis. And number 4, other. I've learned over doing all these deep dives, whether you are doing something grand like the universe creation theories, or something possibly insignificant as a game of Monopoly, let's say, even though I don't think it was insignificant, you always have to add option D, other, or none of the above, or something else. So now I want to try to see if we can connect to some of these scientists and ask some questions. Now, before I do any of my dowsing sessions, I want to make sure that you understand my protocol. I always take a few breaths before I do anything. I try to relax as much as possible. I bring in the light and the love into my crown chakra. I sage the area, clearing it of all negative entities, low vibrations. And I set my intentions to only receive answers for my highest good and my highest light. Now, I've done all of this before this session, so let's continue. Hey folks, I'm interrupting this session just for 30 seconds. If you like what you are seeing, please take a second, like and subscribe. It would really, really help me out. This is a brand new channel and I would love to continue doing what I'm doing. If you have a topic of interest that you would like me to douse on, please let me know. I've got a list of topics already, but I would love to hear what you want me to look into. Let's start dowsing. So I thought the very first person that I would like to try to bring in is, and I have to say his name now, or at least give it a shot, Georges Lemaitre. He's Belgian, or was Belgian. So forgive me by mispronouncing the name if I'm sure I have. Born in 1894, died in 1966. The Big Bang Theory. Derived it from Albert Einstein's general theory of relativity. So we're going to do that first. I'm going to go into my angle here with my chart. Now this is my chart. I want to make sure that you guys can see it nicely. I've got my pendulum here and you can see both angles. Okay, great. So I would like first to ask the universe, please, for Georges Lemaitre, the originator of the Big Bang Theory, to please grace us with his presence. Can you please come in? Okay, so we're getting a nice yes there. I hope you can see that. And let's go into the first question here. Did your Catholic faith influence your acceptance of a universe with a definite beginning? Now, this is interesting. Remember, I pointed out that he was actually a Catholic priest, aside from an astronomer. So we want to know if his Catholic upbringing influenced his theory of the Big Bang Theory. Can you please answer that question? Okay, we're getting a yes there. So that's actually interesting, because the one thing about the Big Bang Theory, as opposed to the steady state theory, is that the Big Bang Theory, interestingly enough, has a little bit more religious implication. I always thought, when I learned about the Big Bang Theory, it was almost as if God opened his eyes. It's almost as if God awoken from his sleep and said, okay, I'm going to create the universe now. Do you still believe that the universe expanded from a primeval atom as you proposed in 1927? So that's a no. So something happened when he passed over to make him think otherwise. So, okay, let's go on now to the next person that I want to bring in. I want to thank Georges Lemaitre for coming in, the Belgian physicist and Catholic priest. Thank you very much for coming in. And we are now going to bring in Mr. Fred Hoyle. Now, Fred Hoyle was the cosmologist that created the steady state theory. He created it along with two other scientists, Herman Bondi and Thomas Gold. He was born in 1915, died in 2001. All right, so let's go ahead and ask. First, we're going to ask to see if Mr. Fred Hoyle can come in before we ask this question. So first, I want to ask for Mr. Hoyle to come in. Mr. Fred Hoyle, please, can you grace us with your presence today and answer some questions about the universe creation theory? We're getting a yes. So let me ask this question. Now, Fred, when he was alive, was an atheist, okay, as opposed to the Catholic priest before. So we're going to ask him this. Did your atheism play a role in preferring an eternal universe without a creation event. So we're getting a yes here, and we see a pattern here, at least with these two scientists, with the Big Bang Theory scientist, Georges Lemaitre. I think I'm getting better at saying his name. His religion influenced the Big Bang Theory, and now Fred Hoyle, his lack of religion, therefore, his atheism, influenced the steady state theory. Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. So similarly to asking Georges Lemaitre, from where you are now, Mr. Fred Hoyle, and the knowledge that you have, do you still reject the Big Bang Theory? So that's a strong yes. So it looks like the Big Bang Theory might not be so popular in heaven. Again, this is for entertainment purposes only. Okay? Now, I have one more thing that I want to do. I want to try to bring in Stephen Hawking. And let's talk a little bit about Stephen Hawking here. Now, Stephen Hawking, we all know, we're all familiar with him and his work. Born in 1942, died in 2018. Now, he believed the universe's creation theory is best described by quantum cosmology, specifically spontaneous quantum creation from nothing governed by natural laws, rather than any religious or metaphysical framework. Hawking explicitly stated that invoking God to explain the universe's beginning was unnecessary. He viewed early motivations for an eternal universe, like the steady state theory, as attempts to avoid divine intervention, but evidence favored a beginning. So he favored also, it seems like a Big Bang, right? That it was a beginning to the universe as opposed to an eternal or infinite, well, not infinite, eternal, ongoing, constant universe that was always there. However, he argued that the laws of physics, particularly gravity, made the Big Bang inevitable without requiring a prime mover. Okay, so I'm going to ask now for Stephen Hawking to come in, and I have a question for him before we end this session. Please, Mr. Hawking, can you come in and answer some questions for me for my podcast? Thank you. Now, from your vantage point, right now, do you still support the Big Bang Theory as the reason for the creation of the universe? Okay, so you see what's happening there, folks? We're getting a balance of a yes and a no, which basically means that there is some truth to the Big Bang Theory, and not everything holds water with the Big Bang Theory, at least according to Stephen Hawking from where he is now. So let's ask him one more question then before we finish up. Would you say that the universe was created by a higher being, be it God or a divine, infinite creator being? And that looks like a definite yes there. So regardless of what's going on, we don't really know 100%, but we do know that the three scientists, Georges Lemaitre, Fred Hoyle, and the late, great Stephen Hawking, when they passed over, their beliefs were not in line with what they so wholeheartedly believed and preached and wrote about when they were alive. Well, folks, that's the session for today. I hope you liked it. If you did, please click that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to hear in the comments what you think. This topic can be talked about again and again and again. I just scratched the surface with this topic. Perhaps in another session, we can do another dowsing session and ask some more deeper questions about the creation of the universe, about who literally did create the universe, aside from Big Bang or steady state or what have you. Who did it? Because we didn't really get into that. We just got into the possibility that it was definitely a higher being of some sort. Okay? So again, thank you for being here. If you have any topics that you'd like me to do, please put that in the comments. I would love to hear those. Right? Catch you on the next one.